And there you go. That is our signal to say welcome back to Eliminate the Gap. It is good to be back. Since we've done the full episode, we've done some segments. I know you all out there know that, but here is kind of the full episode. And so with that, just check in. How's your summer been? Gosh, it's almost time for you to go back to school.
Yeah, man, it's been really, really short, but great nevertheless. I've gotten out, been able to do a little things here and there, and I got one little small trip planned back before football begins up for me at the end of next week. So
there you go. And it's been, I agree, it's been a quick summer. I don't have the same parameters you have, not having to actually start back in school. So but yeah, it's good to do a trip here, a trip there, and but it's good to be back on this venue. And I'm telling you, for those of you, we've got some great stuff in this episode and some real big surprises coming up in the next several weeks. So we're very excited you all have taken the time to join us. If you have seen one of the segments, this episode is about play and how important it is for young people, especially coming off the pandemic, but it's always been very important for young people to be involved in physical activity and play with each other, etc. Delmar and I even did help with one of our colleagues do a study on this years ago. And years ago, I mean, more than 10 years ago. It was called
years. I looked. It's been almost 20 years.
Oh my goodness! Well, there you go. Been a long time. And at the time, we looked at several programs around the country that were using sports and athletics as a way to engage young people in youth development, and it was, no different than a lot of folks use other things. And we'll hear about a couple of them here in this episode.
Yeah, and one of the things that, just kind of flipping through that and kind of looking where we've come, like one of the things that we discussed in that book at that point in time, that was the need for more female role models. And man, have we come a long ways in 20 years. Like, it's just amazing. And we're going to hit on that in this episode, actually. So that's awesome.
No, that's a huge point to pull up. And I mean, we, as with all of it, we have a long way to go. But yes, significant strides. I remember almost always talking to men or males who were running these kinds of programs and really seeking to engage only men. And we've just come a long way, and that's outstanding. In this episode, we will talk to two different organizations. One, we will talk to an organization called Playworks. Playworks is a national organization that has about a dozen chapters or so around the country. And what they do is, well, you'll find out. We spoke to Shauna McDonald, who is the executive director of Playworks in Minnesota. And so she's going to be our first guest. And so we'll play that pre-recorded interview here in a moment. And then our other guest, Delmar, was
Jewel Christian, my niece.
Oh my, your niece.
Yes, it's awesome.
And she's from where?
She is actually she's from this area, but she went to UNC down there in North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So she's
played soccer.
Some stuff. It played soccer there, and so now she actually works for DC Scores, and that's what she's going to be talking about in this episode here. So just wanted to kind of tie all that in to show you where we're going.
Absolutely. So share with you Minnesota Playworks, and then we'll come back, chat for a moment, and then move on to the next interview. So anyway, thanks you all very much for sticking with us. And we know that this will be some really, really important information for you all.
So, welcome back to Eliminate the Gap. I'm so excited, as you all, Delmar and I are in the same room, which is not happening. You gotta represent. There we go. Some Eliminate the Gap t-shirts. There we go. So you know, you can just this episode, we're really talking about the other side of what so many of us have been hearing about the summer and about catching up academically and learning loss and whatever other verbiage you want to put on it. We've been focusing this episode really on play and having fun and sport and just all of those kinds of things. And with us is Sean McDonald, Executive Director of Playworks Minnesota. And we've worked together on and off for years, but I'm very excited to learn a lot more about what Playworks does and again, how maybe the rest of the folks in our audience can incorporate some of the ideals that we're talking about. So, Sean, welcome. And feel free to just kind of give everybody an overview of kind of Playworks, the concept of it.
Yeah, I would love to. So, Playworks is actually a national nonprofit. We've been around for 25 years, and we focus on play. So, increasing opportunities for safe and healthy play, partnering with schools, and leveraging recess as the most important time of day to a kid. And either they love it or they dread it. And also partnering with after school, out of school time, coaches, and building rapport. Helping to engage and keep kids engaged and included, and also leaning into youth voice and choice in all kinds of activities. So we do that by creating a shared understanding amongst kids on how to do things, and then really ensuring that we're attending to creating an environment they can be successful in. So we are all across the country. You can find us at post the link. Is that right, Eric? Yeah, at playworks.org, and we have tons of free resources that teachers, anybody, parents, you can dig into that can give you some ideas and maybe help you infuse more play into a kid's day.
That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about why is this? Why does Playworks exist and should it well, not everybody obviously understands this piece. So
no.
A little bit about that.
Play comes out of my mouth. People are like, well, kids play, right? We all play. So it's fascinating. Even when I get this position, I let Eric know. He's like, what are you doing? Conversation? What are you doing? Let's talk about play. So play is a universal communicator. All people and all play. So it's a developmental necessity in both humans and all mammals. So why do you think we play? Give me something.
Oh, it's not
No. This is our interview. Why do you think we play?
I would think it probably releases endorphins into the body. Yeah. I think we need just contact and socialization with others. And it's a release.
It's a release, right? It's those relationships, it's a release, it's our body
we did. Did we?
You did pretty good. You did pretty good. Yeah. So the thing about play is that it is actually a developmental necessity for brain development and all the things you guys said, like socialization, the um, social skills, social emotional skills. But in early childhood, it's really key. And when I mean early childhood, I'm talking pre-K through age 8. It's critical for executive functioning development. And so executive function, I know big giant word, is the root system of all learning. So it's right. So, with really little kids, we teach them things like, okay, there's no biting, right? My son was a huge biter in terms of solving problems, no biting. So we help kids learn some of these basic skills. There's a huge amount of brain development that goes on, and play is integral to that brain development. So when you guys talk about eliminating gaps, play plays a central role in ensuring that kids have the brain development and the tools they need in order for us to build on, in order for us to build both the academic and also social emotional 21st century skills, whatever we want to call them, that are critical to their lifelong success. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So then, as a result, right, we're all just emerging great stages from the pandemic,
Yeah.
being regulated in lots of ways. So, a little bit about how you all in this concept of play, how you all were able to put that in your screen, and isolate from each other just this energy that we're all going to have when we explode on these summer camps and all these other programs here in the
Right.
next weeks.
Well, I think, so we talk about play and play deprivation even before the pandemic. So on average, how much do you think kids play related to how much you guys played as kids? What do you think?
Or are we defining that as
Define that, like we did as kids. Generally, I'm going to lump us into a similar generation, right? We used to go out, run outside, goof around, get hauled in when it was dark, right?
I would say they play about half the time that we play.
So,
Water. Yeah. Video games, like.
oh, that's right.
Right. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, so I can play video games.
I say, what are you talking to me? What are you talking to me? So it's actually 50% less than their parents play, right? So if you're down, right? So video game, you got to make your credit. So if video games really structured in school, right? So we are really laser focused on those academic outcomes that we know for kids, academic outcomes that we've taken away parts of a kid today that they need for their development, for their socialization, for their mental health, and for their physical well-being, right? So for Playworks, we concentrate in elementary and middle school to leverage recess as that community time. So if you think of recess as the largest classroom, this is where we were at like before the pandemic. That is where a child is going to build community. They're learning civic engagement. They're learning how to negotiate. They're building relationships. They're doing conflict resolution. Like there's all these really critical things. And there are a lot of kids when they get into that open environment that is really anxiety producing. Really anxiety producing because so much of their days are so structured that when you get them into an open environment, right, they're not sure what to do. Right? They don't have the tools or scaffolding that they need. So in the pandemic, we know kids have played less. There's been more social isolation. And what we did in the pandemic is we leaned into supporting both the teachers and educators, but also out of school time. And we did a hard pivot in terms of going virtual. So we did at the very beginning of the pandemic, we're like, okay, we need to lead into mission. How are we going to do that? And so we started like spinning up 3 virtual recesses a day for kids on Facebook, and they took off like wildfire. And then we leaned in and listened even more to what teachers specifically and youth workers and others were telling us. And what they were telling us was they were having a really hard time getting their kids to engage and even just turn on their camera. And they were really, like Don was nodding, he's a teacher, really worried about their kids. And so we came up with a really simple game of the week that could be played virtually. And we launched kind of a subscription model called Keep Playing, and it delivers just one simple bite of a game. It's delivered in a video, a fun game that was successful to do online, and some debrief questions, and a little brain break that was in it. And this thing took off on us like crazy, and we started getting input back from tons of teachers saying, oh my gosh, they're turning on their cameras, they're smiling, they're laughing. Why? Because they're engaged in something fun, something joyous, and something that they feel partnership and belonging for. Right? So we leaned in hard. As we're coming out, we have seen, as we're coming out of the pandemic, that kids have a lot of, they're excited, but they have a lot of anxiety about re-engaging kids. And so a couple things that we can help do as teachers, as youth workers, is to set kids up in a way that helps them be successful in engaging relationships and engaging back into community. We need to really think about that because that's what a kid is thinking about, right? A kid is not thinking about coming back to school and getting back to that math worksheet. That's not what a kid is thinking.
Yeah.
Right? A kid is thinking about when I go into open play, how will this is where a kid is thinking. And so how can we scaffold those environments? How can we scaffold classrooms and morning meetings so that we're creating a really welcoming and inclusive environment that's fun, that kids feel good in?
So, and again, I'm going to go off script a little bit. Just listening, we all Playworks in my hometown. COVID, well, and so one of the things, again, that even started the podcast was some of the tension that Delmar and I experienced on both sides of youth development in the after school time and in the academic environment and in formal education. And there's been for many years this doesn't mean any tension, but there's just a different way of going about reaching young people. So it seems, right? So in my experience that day at Playworks, I saw the Playworks staff doing what they do and doing it really well. And I saw teachers doing these just moments in time that was undermining everything that I felt like the Playwork folks were doing. And it was around discipline and it was around some things that just, oh man, you're completely undoing what's happening here. And so I wonder, sorry for the build up of it, this sense of how do you all continue to rectify what might be some folks still in formal education that don't subscribe to all this warm and fuzzy kind of stuff you're talking about because they want people to stand in line and be quiet and you know what I mean? And so I witnessed it, and so I'm just curious, does that
Yeah. I mean, I think you're talking about where, how do you get that cultural shift? How do you get that stickiness, right? Like people to kind of adopt and believe. And I think what we found is it happens, we see some teachers like, oh my gosh, I get this. Because one of the things that we do and we do so well is group management. But we do it by partnering with kids. And we utilize play as a tool. right? So we're creating that partnership with kids. So a lot of what you would observe in Playworks, and we go in, I'm backtracking one. So we go in, and when we do have a partnership with a school, we talk about the partnership and that we think that recess should not be used for discipline. We give training and capacity development to all teachers on ways in which we can ask kids to take a step back, but isn't that really kind of, okay, you're bad, go sit on the wall kind of a moment, right? So there are other kinds of options for kids, like, hey, do 10 jumping jacks and join us again, right? There's those kinds of different options. And with the teachers, when they start to see more success programmatically, we get more and more buy-in, and as their peers adopt it, we get more and more. And to be honest, we don't win everyone over, right? So what I find fascinating, we've just launched, because again, we did a lot of listening this year and working really intently with teachers. And one of the things I find fascinating is that in teachers training, and even in some youth worker, not all, like we all have our different silos and approaches depending on who we are. But teachers in particular, they don't get coursework or training on rapport building, how to group manage, play even as a tool for them to utilize to help facilitate inclusion and engagement, just fun, silly things like check-in questions. I mean, just like a battery of tools. They get none of that training. So I think until we can also elevate this as a really critical component, and this I mean by the teachers get told that you need to build rapport with kids, right? How you need to create a community and do these things. Well, what are the kinds of tools we're giving to them? And a lot of this just doesn't come in the box curriculum. You got to kind of feel your way through it. Social emotional learning, rapport building. There is no box curriculum out there. It's really experiential. I don't know if I answer your question. Yeah.
I agree with you there. As I transitioned into education, and realized these things that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some things that you would think, I guess, maybe from an administrative, at least, point of view, that teachers would already have, perhaps, maybe. But again, as you said, there's definitely not the training. And this is what I know you guys, again, starting up, I know.
Yeah.
At its best, there's when I went out to Oakland, that was the first time I'd experienced a setting or an educational setting where there wasn't PE as a class. And so what? How do they not have PE? So that was mind-boggling just for me because I had no concept.
Yeah, math was my best subject. Speaking of recess, or my best subject. Right, and I think what you're pointing is that's how far we've come in kind of we've taken out and the American Academy of Pediatrics has really been pushing on this because they're seeing on the flip side, they're seeing mental health, they're seeing one of the things that Steve Jack came out was the obesity, especially for Black children, right? So we're seeing that tick back up, the disparities. And yet, recess on average, if it's offered, is only 15 minutes a day, once a day for kids. 15 minutes.
Really sad, yes.
Right? And we have no federal legislation, so we could go off on a completely different day. Right? That guarantees kids. So leave your viewers. I have a couple of quick tricks and try ones that maybe might be interesting, right? So I actually talked to, and thankfully, right, I talked to my program director and team, and like, I was going to give 3 tips. What would they be, right? So I talked to the experts. So they said that the first one they would recommend for any teacher or youth worker, right, is to have a dispute mediation process for kids. And one we use, and we use it elementary through middle, sometimes we even use it at high school, we certainly use it when we do corporate training, is rock, paper, scissors. If you can't talk it out, rock, paper, scissors. So we go rock, paper, scissors, show, and we do show, not shoot, right? Intentionally, we do show, not shoot. So here's the tip. Here's the tip. We're going to give everyone a link to the Playworks game guide. There's over 300, who knows how many, right? If you search rock, paper, scissors, we introduce rock, paper, scissors to kids. So every skill or tool that we help kids acquire, we introduce it through play. So to introduce rock, paper, scissors to your campers or your classroom, we would suggest playing a game like rock, paper, scissors, relay, or rock, paper, scissors, rock star, so that kids are having a really good time playing it, and then say, hey, rock it out, right? Rock, paper, scissors, drop it, move on. I used that with my child, but he was young all the time, right? So obviously you want to be able to coach it, but a lot of right for kids, and people tell you is really simple things that are really right? Like who got to the ball first? You can have a whole meltdown. Recess is completely lost in terms of who got to the ball first. So that's one. Am I over time? Oh, I am over time.
You're fine. You're fine. This is exactly the kind of information we were hoping to be able to share with folks.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so another really simple thing to do. We've all been in that environment, certainly experienced it, right? You're playing a game, you're out at recess, or you're just playing and you miss the ball, or you make a mistake, and people are like, oh, right? You missed it, you flubbed, and you're like, right? So one of the things that we introduce, especially in open play or in any environment, is to transition that and simply acknowledging somebody tried, right? So we give lots of high fives. And we say, good job, nice try. We give high fives. During COVID, we were giving chair high fives, elbow high fives. We give high fives all the time. And so instead of that moment where a kid feels like, wow, I just blew it, people are judging me, it's anxiety producing, instead, we introduce the concept of just high five, nice try. It's a much different feeling experience, something really easy to introduce. You simply start modeling it. That's it. Okay, and my third one that I got was framing rules in a positive way. So this will speak to your heart as a youth worker, Eric, and that's just simply having group agreements for what's going to happen, right? But framed in a positive way. So instead of, we do a lot with kids around shared understanding of either how to play something or how we're going to behave in the environment we're in, right? So framing group agreements, whether it's the classroom, whether it's open play, and inviting kids in to participate in creating those group agreements, and try and keep, don't do this. You want to keep it on the flip, right? You want to keep it on the positive, right? So be kind, be respectful, be, don't yuck my yum is one that we use, which means take that one. Don't yuck my yum.
It might be a little colloquial there.
Right? So I love doing this to you. We're going to close out, and I want you to try this one on in a meeting or a high school classroom or any environment. And are you guys familiar with check-in questions?
Yes.
Try those out.
I'll school them. should, but yes, especially during this past year.
Right. So one way, because sometimes it's like, you get stumped, like, dang, what is the check-in question going to be? So we always rotate it, especially with the kids. Like the older kids, it's like we always do a check-in question. We're like, hey, you know what? You're doing the check-in question. So you think about it and come back, right? Because you're queued up. So we'll do a check-in question. All right, ready?
Yep.
This is a really quick and easy trick. It's great for meetings, super fast. Okay, so what is one thing that you could eat every day or do eat every day for the rest of your life?
Go ahead. I'm just gonna go with seafood. It doesn't really matter what it is. Just give me one of those crustaceans, and I'm all about it.
You could just eat it every day.
Oh,
Most definitely.
yeah.
I could do that. No.
Yeah. Especially if I get to be as broad as you know. I get to say something like cheese, because then I can rotate my cheese. I can have cola. I can have man, I can eat these every day. Oh my goodness.
You guys went really broad. You want to know what? I'll tell you mine, but so I asked, so checking questions can be anything, like a fun and silly question, right? You can also do quick this or that, right? Like we could decide, we'll try that out, and then I'll answer the check-in question. Waffle team, or we have a cake team?
I'm on neither. I don't like either.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. If I had to, it would probably be the cake, and then I would give it to Dell. Because I would eat it. I'm really good sweets, and then I'm very good syrup on it.
Okay, maybe pancake team. I like pancake. I'll eat your pancakes.
Yeah.
Right on? Okay, so here's the thing that I actually do eat every day. It's a very divisive thing.
You can kill me with this.
No, it's not. It's people have very opinionated about this.
Yeah.
So no, it's not tofu. I eat black licorice every day.
So you're on that team, I see.
I don't have a black licorice team. Yeah, see, I told you, super divisive. All right, so we're going to round this out. I'll tell you what the number one answer is. Do you want to guess? You just want me to tell you?
What you really eat every day?
Yeah.
I would say pizza, because people, that's the number one food. I'm going bacon.
Eric, you are on fire during I have missed out. It's like I should do like some kind of paper or thing about this, because I have asked this so many times. I'm fascinated with how many people say pizza. And I really press hard, like every day. You're like,
yeah. The thing is that and I won't go on to the recording. Fine, maybe I could check. But anyway, so this has been a lot of fun. It's been allowed us to be not too silly, but still get the spirit, the message out very concretely to folks that we absolutely need to be doing this. And sure, we're coming out of a difficult time, and it seems like it'd be easier for us to make this a point of business, but it has to be a part, in my opinion, of your curriculum all the time. Young people need it all the time to be a part of the balance of all their other structures in their life. And so I'm just grateful that you spent some time with us to be able to share what you all are doing, and honestly ways that we all can incorporate it more into what it is that we're doing. So I really just am grateful. Thank you, Shauna, for spending some time with us. And again, we're going to put out some of these links out when this podcast gets released. You'll see some links that you all can go to follow up and do some additional things. And one of the things I'm going to tease them to go do is learn more about some of the adult recess pieces that Playworks does. It's an important thing this whole concept of play for all of us, not just the young people. And you all are doing that as well, and people can learn more about it and help them as organizations and companies.
We love it. Thank you so much. It was so great to see you again.
Let's finish off. Great job. Give it up.
Bam! Absolutely.
Hey, so that was a really great interview that we had with Shauna there. I mean, one of the things, especially as I'm getting ready to embark upon this school year, I'm continuously writing down, jotting myself little notes down, just, little reminders. And that's something I think we all need. That's one of the reasons we do this is, all of us need reminders of these small little things that we want to incorporate. And sometimes, other things get to be more prioritized than play.
No, for sure. It's easy to just skip over it sometimes, particularly in times, crunches. It's interesting that, well, one, we were together on that. Clearly,
Yes.
some of you all saw that, which is kind of cool. And so, but just how simple these tips were that she gave us. When we release the full episode, we'll make sure those are available again for folks to be able to check it out, because they're just good reminders, like you said. So I'm going to have to edit this out because you're supposed to introduce our next segment.
Oh, sorry. I know.
Go ahead.
I was like, fuck. I was like, what are we doing next? I was like, yeah, we'll wait. All right, we'll edit that out.
All right, ready? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
All right, so next we're going to have Jewel Christian, as we discussed at the start of the show here, talk a little bit about DC Scores. So we're tying in everything here together with play. And DC Scores here is actually a part of America Scores, which we actually did a little bit of work with on that. There it is, that sports as a hook. So really cool to kind of come back around and revisit some of this. I believe we didn't get to visit DC Scores, but we actually visited Bay Scores out there in the Oakland area. So this is a great little tie-in here that we're going to have.
Excellent. Yeah, look forward to this piece here, and then we'll finish up the episode. So here we are today. Our guest is Jewel Christian with DC Scores.
How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing great. Hey, I want to show you and everybody else. Check out our shirt. You got the swag. I know you've seen that behind us, but here, I wanted to show the shirt here actually on the podcast. It's actually one of us actually wearing it. There you go. And before we can go into Jewel, just to actually we are in the same place. Finally, COVID is broken up where we can do the same spot here and have an opportunity to do a couple interviews and bring this to the audience. So, all our fun stuff all over. Go ahead and I'll kick it off with you. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the mission of DC Scores and who you guys serve.
Okay, so Keystone Scores is a nonprofit organization, and we are basically just want to give every kid in DC the opportunity to belong to a sports team. Specifically, we do soccer, and we actually pair that with, which is really cool, and most people just don't think would work, but we pair it with creative writing and expressing yourself. So we have three different seasons. We have a fall season, which is 12 weeks soccer, 12 weeks poetry, and then a winter season, which is 6 weeks soccer, 6 weeks nutrition, and then a spring season, which is 12 weeks soccer again, but paired with 12 weeks of service learning, which is basically giving back to the community. With our organization, we partner with other schools just around DC area, like low income areas, and basically provide this free soccer league and free creative writing for all the kids for our after school program.
That's awesome. So, what's the age group that you target?
We are targeting now, I believe, is kindergarten all the way to 8th grade.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Our we call it our junior scores, which is kindergarten to 2nd grade. Is fairly new, and so I think we are in our 2nd year, but I guess it's not a real 2nd year because of COVID. But yeah, we're trying to really focus on getting those kids started at a very young age, so they can literally go through the program all the way through 8th grade, which I think is super fantastic.
Absolutely. So, I mean, do you find that soccer is the reason why young people, why they get involved, or is it some other reason? At least in the beginning.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it is the soccer standpoint. Just kids being active, they want to join sports, and that play is just incredibly too expensive for a lot of people to play. And so being able to provide them with a free league, I think it's just something that gives them the opportunity to be a part of it. And, also, just hang out with their friends. So I think the soccer part was really, really intriguing for the kids. And then when they get to the poetry, I mean, when you're young, you're not going to really think like, oh, I want to be a poet. I want to write this. I want to write that. But man, when they get to their poetry slams at the end of our fall season, they are loving it. They're really enjoying themselves. They're expressing themselves in the way that they want to express themselves, and the youth voice is being heard. So I think I don't know if at a young age the kids know it, but like as they get older, they realize like how important that the poetry is a part of this organization, and how important it is to their growth and to their adulthood.
Well, sure, and just I can only imagine somebody like Amanda Gorman being out there and making poetry pretty cool again, in some ways, at least in a visible way. Also takes maybe and brings up the energy on that part.
Yeah. So your organization's in a unique position with being able to partner with the DC public schools there. How do you guys capitalize on that partnership? I know you talked about you guys allow them to write and do this self-expression of poetry and stuff. But how does that actual relationship actually kind of interwoven into what you guys do?
I think with for both sides, the soccer and the writing side, being interwoven with school, I think with that physical activity, we're getting kids. I know they get recess, but like just another hour outside playing soccer, they're getting that physical activity in, and they're healthier. I know we surveyed kids at the end, and like we've seen a lot of increase in like physical activity, healthier kids with our nutrition. They're eating better. They know better foods, what to eat, and then also kids are writing better from being in poetry and always writing. They're writing better. They're reading better. So its correlation is actually is pretty impressive and super helpful for them in their school days.
Cool. Well, yeah, so this kind of came about. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Is 20 years ago, I was part of this program that we actually worked together called Sports as a Hook. And back then, we actually did work with not DC schools, but the Bay Area schools there. So over 20 years, can you tell us how, a lot has changed in 20 years? And can you tell us a little bit about how DC scores / America scores has changed over 20 years?
So I think I can go into that a little bit. Still being fairly new to the company, it's kind of hard for me to really tell you exactly how it has.
And maybe not really existing when we did this report.
I'm just kidding. I'm fine, but it's okay.
Fair enough, I understand, you know. What you thought about it when you were 5.
You know, like every other organization, we're growing. With the amount of kids we're serving, we're increasing. I know with DC Scores, our 5-year plan is to reach 5,000 kids in the DC area. Affiliates of America Scores, that's what we're a part of. I'm sure that they're trying to reach that goal as well. I know over the 20 years we've increased our partnerships. I know DC Scores is partnered. We're partnered with DC United. We're partnered with Washington Spirit. So I just think in ways like that, that's where a lot of our growth is at. But I'm sure there's a lot more that I just don't really know too much about right now.
So part of the unique and being out of the school system, how much are you trying to have an interest in academic outcomes from the young people? You mentioned using actually, you know, see academic achievement change.
That's a very big part of our mission as well. I guess we're empowered to find the academic success and help kids grow emotionally and physically. But we don't want to just be there for them, but we want to be their mentors. We want to help them not only through K to 8th grade, but also from high school and so on. We want to push them academically so they know what their worth is and all the different options they have, whether it's college, like trade school. I mean, some go straight into work, but we just want to make sure that through our program, we're setting them up with all of those types of opportunities, tools, success. I mean, that's a big part of our mission for our co-ed athletes.
Well, we'll end up with, you know, you talked a little bit about the COVID in the past year and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about what your plans are for this summer and how you're implementing that with the different protocols that may still be in place in the DC area.
So in the summer, it's getting going. I'm super excited for it. We actually are providing summer camps this summer, which is super awesome. Last year we were supposed to, but with, like you said, with COVID, we had to do like virtual summer camps, which was great, but also like not what everyone was looking for. So this summer we will have, I believe it's like 5 or 6 different summer camps. It's usually what we usually do is kind of have it like like everyone registers and like it's a big camp. But this year it's just going to be school specific. So we're gonna have like 5 or 6 different school sites that have their own summer camps, and the co-ed athletes that go to those schools will be the ones that are able to join those camps. Our first camp actually starts next Monday, which is super exciting. I'll be working at that camp as one of the head counselors. I'm super excited. The kids they're gonna do soccer and arts, which is really cool. I mean, obviously they're gonna still have to wear masks, but we have this. We're trying to implement ways for kids to still play soccer but socially distance. So in our spring season, we kind of opened up to where some schools, if they wanted to, they could do in person. But like each kid for that in person, they get their like on the field. We make little grids out of cones, so they have their own little work area, and that's what they do individual ball work. Sometimes they can pass the ball because I believe we're allowed to share equipment now. So I'm thinking if nothing changes, that's how it's going to be for our summer camp. But if things open back up, it will be full on playing around, masked up, but kids are outside and enjoying summer. So I mean, that's like the real thing that's important to us. We're getting the kids back outside, back with their friends.
That's just listening to your description just is a reminder that things are varied from region to region around this country in terms of I normally, when I'm not sitting next to Delmar here in Washington D.C. area, I'm in Indiana, and it's been full on, for a while now, and every community has to make their own decisions. I'm glad that you all are taking into account to make sure the young people are safe and that the parents feel good about it. And so, that's great. Just want to know that there are folks watching and will be watching this that are probably in a different environment right now. So just a reminder that we're all still kind of, in various forms of COVID. And coming out of the pandemic.
Finding our way through it.
Absolutely. I think the last thing, if I could, we start talking a little bit about this the importance of play, just in general, regardless of the DC scores or other organizations, coming out of the pandemic where we've all been kind of sequestered, quarantined, as it were, and not being able to do these kind of things, just being outside and having fun, just the importance of that part of it this summer.
I think it's extremely important for mental health reasons, like being cooped up and so long. I mean, it can really be a burden on you. So kids being outside and being back in the community with their friends, it's going to be really great for their social learnings and emotional learning. I know I had a practice maybe last week. It was just a one-on-one with me and this girl, and it was her probably not her first time outside, but her first time, like, I guess, being around other people. And I mean, the joy on her face was all I needed, really. It was amazing. We played a little soccer, but I just think it was like a 45-minute session. We probably did like 10 minutes soccer, and then the rest, she just needed to talk because like she just hasn't had that in so long. I mean, it's been her family, but seeing a different face, just wanted to just express everything. So I think that's gonna be really great for the kids to like, be around people their age again, talking about all the different things that they usually talk about, they bond over, and then just not being on the screen anymore. Because I know kids aren't liking it, parents definitely aren't liking it. So like they're outside, and that's going to be a big one for them.
Well, hey, Jewel, thanks for spending some time with us here today. Good luck with your camps this summer, and we look forward to seeing you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for having me as well. This was awesome.
All right. Well, there we have it. That was a great interview there with Jewel, and just thinking a little bit about that and just reflecting and looking as we're getting ready to move into this next school year. One thing that they really have got, I think, a master on is this relationship with schools. And we talk about that in sports as a hook as well, is building not only relationships with schools, but the community around. But they really have dived into the school setting and being able to work with kids. They do a lot of work around poetry and things of that nature as well, helping kids develop their writing skills. So that's really cool. I really love what they're doing there with DC Scores.
Yeah, I mean, how lucky are we, by the way, that we've had some really great guests.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, in this episode alone, we have two very well-respected organizations and people giving up their time to hopefully share with others out there in the youth development community ways in which they can continue to do good work, and in this case, incorporate play into maybe some of the things they do. So, man, just
Yeah.
Very
Shout,
good.
shout out to all of the folks that have come out and been on the show. We really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. And that leads us to this kind of big announcement, as it were. We have been honored to been accepted to have the NBA Foundation Executive Director on our next episode. His name is Greg Taylor. He's been well-heeled in youth development for even longer than Dell and I. And the NBA Foundation just started about a year ago. So we're just honored to be able to do this podcast and have him as a guest around their 1-year anniversary. So we're very excited about that. I won't spoil too much, but a lot of what the NBA Foundation seeks to do is empower young people of color, Black economic empowerment, social justice, all of these very important critical issues that have been that are just important to address, and they are taking it head on. And we will learn a lot more about what it is that they're up to and how some of you all can learn from what it is that they're doing.
Cool. I'll make sure I bring my party attire to celebrate that 1-year anniversary.
There you go. That's excellent. So as we alluded to in this episode, there will be some follow-up links to Playworks Minnesota and DC Scores. And this full episode, as always, can be found on Castos and any one of our social media platforms. So feel free here. You'll see them here in a moment to check us out, like us, share us. And look forward to the next episode with the NBA Foundation. So until then, you all keep on keeping on.